From Florida's Space Coast, this is Your Career.
Welcome to Your Career. I'm Debbie Featherston, your host, and with me today is Jonathan Lack, who is an attorney. And John, I am delighted that you are here. Tell us a little bit about your background, just as a quick snapshot, just to give the viewer a little bit more of a background of how long you've been practicing.
All right, well, thank you for having me. I've been practicing law now for in my 26th year, so it's been a little while. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, so it's gone quickly, and I guess that's a good sign. That means I'm enjoying what I'm doing. My background is actually, my undergraduate degree was in mathematics, computer science, and I actually, coming out of college, thought I might merge math and computer science with the law. But when I got to law school, I discovered that I didn't really enjoy the patent, copyright, trademark area of the law, and I had an affinity for the real estate, transactional work, things of that nature. So that's how I ultimately became a real estate attorney. And then as time moved on, I was working with my father in a title insurance company. So I had title company and real estate attorney. And then in the last few years, I've actually become a real estate broker. So kind of doing all things real estate at this point.
Perfect. And we're going to take a little closer examination of that because you have a very interesting background. Because of the market, you've had to be real intentional in shifting what you do. And I appreciate you being here and being willing to share your story and how you've been responsive. You know, for someone, John, who is really going after that law degree, what can they do with it?
Well, with a law degree, the obvious thing is you can become a lawyer. And that in and of itself is a very broad statement, however, because there are many, many different types of law. There's criminal law, there's civil law, family law, maritime law, copyrights, patent, trademark law, and what I do is real estate law, and there are many others that I haven't named.
Contract law.
Contract, corporate law, business law, all of those different things. So again, the obvious is if you get a law degree, you can move on to be a lawyer, but even being a lawyer, you still have to decide what area you want to practice. But there are other opportunities with a law degree as well. Many, if not most, politicians actually have a law degree. Some have practiced and some have not, but the law degree helps them with the overall education you get as a lawyer or as a law student, is learning to examine facts and seeing what's relevant and what's not relevant. And there's a mindset of being an attorney or, again, in the law degree that can be useful in many different areas.
How did you actually choose or determine, this is a better question I think, how did you actually determine that a career in law was really a good fit for you?
Well, it's interesting. As a child, I was always, I would like to say I was persuasive and logical in my arguments, but the adults in my world would have said I was argumentative and contrary. So they often, there was a close friend of mine whose grandmother always called me Mr. District Attorney. And from the time I was 5 years old until the time I represented her later in her life, I was always Mr. District Attorney. So it was one of those where I think my personality just suited it. I think as I aged, I mellowed, so I wasn't quite as argumentative as a child, but I found that I enjoyed the logic that's associated with the law, the paring out, as I said, of the facts from the fluff. And so a client will come in and explain all of their issues, and the reality is there's only one fact that's relevant to their whole story. But I enjoy the interaction and hearing the stories and then helping the people. So that's kind of how it evolved and how it evolved into real estate.
Was there something that really influenced you or attracted you to the field of law?
Well, to be honest, my father is a real estate attorney and actually has primarily practiced in real estate law as a title insurance industry, and he's been doing that for 55 years now. So Dad's got a long track record, and it is still, I'm in practice with my father. Lack & Lack Chartered is our firm, and that's me and my father. And Dad still comes in every day, is working.
That's good.
And so it almost seemed like a logical step. Me and my father are very close. We get along. Again, when it seemed obvious that I was going to go to law school, then I made it through law school. It just was a natural transition to come to work with Dad.
So what was it, John, in your thinking that you started really with the computer science, if I have the right?
Right.
Okay.
Well, Interestingly, again, my father never encouraged me to be a lawyer. In fact, with so many law school graduates and such competition in the field even back then, and this was in the, well, I graduated law school in 1990, but in 87 when I graduated college, and really in 83 when I graduated high school and was looking into the degree, Dad said, learn another skill, another trade, see if there's something else you may be interested in, and you can always do the law. The beauty of law school is there's no undergraduate degree that is mandated. So you can actually do anything you want and then still go to law school. Of course, you have to have good grades and you have to take the LSAT, and there are requirements, but there's no requirement that you do political science or that you do economics. In my case, I did math, computer science, and I actually added later in my years a music degree. So I have a music degree as well, and all of that was designed to broaden my horizons, and then ultimately I chose to go to law school. I had opportunities out of college to go into the computer science field, and I decided I'm going to continue the path that I kind of was always on, which was headed towards law school. And I very much enjoyed my college experience, so I felt, let me just continue that on for law school for a few more years, and then at the end of that term, I'll decide whether I'm merging math and computer science with law, or as it turns out, something different.
Something different. And you really ended up following more in your father's footsteps now, as you've described. So when you made the shift, right, you went into law school after you graduated with a math and computer science degree. Did you have to go to a different university, or, and what did that involve in terms of?
Well, when you choose to go to law school, it is just like coming out of high school and applying to colleges. When you come out of college, you apply to law schools. And so you pick the law school that most suits you, and then also that you hope to get accepted to, of course.
What were you looking for from a law school?
Well, I reasonably knew. I went to Emory in Atlanta for undergraduate, and I enjoyed it very much, but I'm from South Florida, and that was as cold as I wanted to get. So I had no desire to go any further north. I thought about staying in Atlanta, and I actually applied and got into Emory, and could have stayed in Atlanta and enjoyed my time there. But I opted to come back to Florida because I knew I was likely to practice law in Florida, and if you're going to practice, it is not a requirement by any means that you go to a state school in the state in which you're going to practice. You can go to any school and practice in any state once you pass the bar. But since I reasonably knew I was going to go to Florida, or I'm sorry, practice in Florida, it made sense to go to a Florida law school and learn, you know, the emphasis being on Florida law. If you look into a Virginia school, while you'll learn law in general, they're going to focus on Virginia law, and there might be differences. So I felt like it was important to stay in the state, and so that was an easy decision as far as that went.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. The reason I'm kind of interested in drilling down a little bit more around the university is because sometimes the school that they get that degree from really matters.
Absolutely, and there's no question, again, the University of Florida, I am biased to be sure, but I consider it the best school in the state. That said, there are schools around the state and around the country that will have areas of specialty. So I can't give an example because I'm not certain what the current state is in that regard, but for example, Florida State University might have a specialty in arbitration, or University of Miami might have a specialty in employment law, or again, I'm making this up, but there might be some area where you're looking to specialize. If you know that's what you want to do, then by all means seek out an institution that specializes in your area. I was uncertain of what I wanted to do, and I was looking for just a broad education and a broad experience, and I would choose as I went along, and so Florida was a very good fit for me.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I think about international law, you know, or just depending on what they want to do. I love the suggestion that you're giving young people. Think about, you know, what do you want to do with that degree, and how does that school really offer you that specialization?
Absolutely, and it's very important, but I will also throw out there, be flexible. You don't really know until you get there. You might think you know, you might be, I'm going to do this. Like I said, I was contemplating, I intended to do computer law, which was back in 1983 through 87, a new area. So from 87 to 90, it was new. And I'm like, I'm going to be at the forefront of that. But unfortunately, as life has it, I took a class in patent, copyright, and trademark, and didn't enjoy it. And then I took a class in real estate, and I loved the professor, and it fit everything I knew and liked. And life will do that to you. You'll have experiences that will change your direction. So, of course, any good law school is going to give you a broad focus, and if you think you like international law and you go to something that specializes in that, you might find you don't really like it.
Right.
But hopefully it's still a good school and gives you a broad education so you can find areas that suit your personality, your skill set, et cetera.
Well, you know, one of the things that I think about is that inexperience remains, right? Just continues to remain the greatest hurdle that any graduate deals with. And I know there's been a little bit more of a decline in the open positions for law degrees over the last 5 years. And so I was just curious, how did you address, and how might you, any recommendations based on your experience, how did you address the lack of experience?
Well, again, I have to acknowledge that I was blessed to have my father, and I was able to work in the summer. What happens in law school is typically you apply for summer internships. That's the most common practice to get experience. And I did interview with some places, but then I had the opportunity. My father had a law office, but a title insurance company. And as a title insurance company, you don't actually have to be a licensed attorney. So for the summer after my second year, where all of my friends were going to these major internships at the big law firms, I came home and worked in my father's title company while he and my mother hopped in a camper and drove around the country. So I ended up...
So let's stop right there. You had a couple months where you were just running the business.
I ran the business. I did it from start to finish for the summer of '89, and it was a magnificent experience. It was really... I came back to school and got to hear about what all my friends and colleagues were doing, stuck in a cubicle working, 20 hours a day and learning.
Yes.
But then the proof is in the pudding. There's Real Property 2, the second property class that you're required to take. I ended up booking that class, and the book award is given to the highest grade in the class. And I was a very good student, but there were law review editors, there were students far better than I was, and they were all like, how did he win that? Well, it's because I spent the summer practicing real estate, so I learned substantially more and had really a wonderful experience. So that, I don't want to say it's cheating. I'm blessed, I'm lucky to have had that opportunity. But to answer your question, how do you get over that hurdle of experience? You need to reach out to firms. There are firms who will hire you as an intern. Sometimes you might even have to do a free internship. Say, look, I'll work for a month or two to get the experience. And most firms will maybe want to throw you something, but at least you get your foot in the door. The best way to learn the law is to practice the law. Law school does not teach you how to practice law. Law school just gives you the mindset. It teaches you how to find the law in the library or nowadays on the computer. And it teaches you how to pare down all the fluff to get to the facts, but it does not teach you the daily practice of law. And the only way to do that is through experience. And again, that catch-22 of how do I get the experience? And the answer there is, again, just offer up your services. And that's the best advice I can give in that regard.
Yeah. I think that's fantastic advice. So you're saying, let's put it in play. Let's go and practice and try it out. So somebody that might be actually struggling with determining what specialization even, they could choose 2 or 3 different internships to get that experience.
Right, yes, and see what you like, because things aren't always as they appear. Something might sound horrible and turn out to be great, and something might sound great and turn out to be boring to you. So
absolutely.
there really is that. And then, like all things in life, there's kind of the luck of the draw. You fall into something I never intended. You might never have intended to do employment law, but you ended up with an internship in employment law, and the next thing you know, you're an employment attorney. So that kind of stuff does happen. I mean, almost all the time. I mean, that's what happens. You fall into a niche and roll with it as long as you're enjoying it. Don't fight it.
Makes sense. Because you got personal injury, and those are just other things that we keep thinking. I keep thinking of different possible
one of the things
applications.
you do need to determine for yourself is personality and skill sets and things like that. Again, we talk of being a lawyer, and of course, I date myself by saying things like LA law and stuff such as that, but you look at the courtroom, you look at the TV shows, and you think of the things you think of from there, but that's a very limited area, and of course it's exaggerated for TV. But are your skill sets such that you like to perform, to argue, to get in front of a jury? Do you want to be a courtroom attorney? Or do you prefer to write? And are you a great writer? And so you might want to be an appellate attorney where you're writing briefs. Now you still have to do oral argument and appellate work. Or maybe you're a great mediator and maybe mediation or maybe family law. If criminal law is a whole different area I don't have much experience with and hope to avoid. But then the transactional work, the work I do is, I like what I do as real estate transaction work because I do closings and I sit with people and I meet with the people and I enjoy these little touches. I've done thousands of closings and I might only spend an hour or two with people in the entirety of the transaction, but in that hour or two, I enjoy the interaction and the conversation, and I'm helping them buy or sell a home, and it's rewarding to me. But find those areas that suit you, whether you're a technician or a performer or a writer or a whatever suits you. And
so really, what we're looking at here in terms of your advice, if I'm synthesizing this well, is that you're suggesting that people really know themselves well in terms of their personality, their makeup, in terms of some of the skill sets that they enjoy using, or some of the things that challenge and interest them, that's going to help to maybe pinpoint a particular specialization or a few specializations that then they can go and try to experience. Absolutely,
that is what I'm saying, but then I will adjust that by saying don't be afraid to go outside your comfort zone.
Yes.
For example, when I came into practice with my father, I always say he's never seen the inside of a courtroom. He's a transactional real estate attorney with a title insurance company, and that's what he's done. When I came into the practice, Dad said, John, glad to have you. Welcome. You need to do something to earn your keep. And so I ended up learning, at the time we were representing a lot of private lenders, and unfortunately at the time we occasionally had to do foreclosures. So Dad wanted to do the foreclosures, he'd refer him to other attorneys. He said, all right, John, if you're in the firm, let's keep this in-house. So I had to learn to do some foreclosure work, which was courtroom work, which I had no intention of doing while I was in law school. And then he had me learn probate, which is courtroom work, but it's really more paper. It's more of a paper processing thing. And both of those areas were something I had never contemplated or considered, but I added that skill set, and as the story goes forward to 2006 and beyond, it's a good thing I did, because the last 10 years I've spent far more time in a courtroom doing foreclosure defense work that back in law school, I avoided every litigation class. I avoided those things because I never saw myself in a courtroom. But I stepped out of the box, and it has made for a very lucrative 10 years during a recession, essentially. You don't find the areas you're interested in and pursue those because you want to enjoy what you do, but don't be afraid of stepping out of the box a little and trying something new. If you don't like it, you back off. But you might find, wow, that's
a better fit than you thought.
Yeah, that was more, I'm better at this than I realized. And that's what's worked with me. I find I'm very good at the foreclosure defense. I don't really enjoy the courtroom work, and I am looking forward to our economy coming back to the point where I'm doing closings instead of this other type of work. However, I am good at it, and it is benefiting my clients, and so I feel good about the work that I'm doing. And that's, again, that self-satisfaction. It's a career. It's not a job. You don't go 9 to 5. As an attorney, it's not a 9 to 5 thing. It's not that you're on all the time, but you're on when your clients need you, and that's not always 9 to 5. So you want to enjoy your career. You want to enjoy what you do. I always said, and I sadly didn't win the Powerball, but I always said, had I won the Powerball, I'd still keep working. I enjoy what I do. I would work less. I'd have less stress. I might not take some cases that I might take now, but the reality is I plan to keep working. As I say, my father is still coming in every day, and I'm not letting him retire, but I don't think he has any desire to retire. I think we enjoy what we do, and again, so it's more of a career. It's a lifetime thing. It's not I have a job that I got to go to every day. And I think actually analyzing what one is doing, given the profession they pursue in law, it's like any of us, we really need to analyze what's really driving that career satisfaction so we can keep replicating or making certain we're doing those kinds of activities or tasks that give us the rewards and help us to achieve that higher level
of joy.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go back for just a moment to something you said earlier. You chose to step into your dad's business, and a lot of students coming right out of they get the law degree, they get the bar, they pass the bar, and then they go into an established firm to work. You chose to work for your father's firm. What would you say for somebody that might be considering that were some of the pros and cons?
Well, the pros are, it was obviously an easy step in. I had an open door, and me and my father get along very well, and we have a wonderful relationship. So it was really very easy for me to make that choice. From a con standpoint, I have a very close friend who is now in practice with his father, and actually I think his father may be mostly retired at this point, but very similar. We're on the same track, father-son kind of situation, but he went out into one of the big firms first, and he spent a couple of years at a big firm, and then decided to come back and work with his father. He learned a lot. He got a broader base. He learned, he had secretarial help. He had other attorneys to consult with in-house. So there's a vast education available to those who don't do it the way I did. And I don't feel I missed that because I'm able to pick my friends' brains, and I'm not afraid to pick up the phone and call people. But that would be an area, again, to broaden your horizons, and then if the circumstances such as I had are available, maybe you can still come back to it, but you kind of get your own legs first, and then you bring it back up. But that said, no second guessing on my part. I couldn't be happier with the path I've chosen.
Perfect. I think that's great for people just to think about the pros and cons of working in a family operation, because you're learning two skill sets, two core skill sets. The law, right? But it's also entrepreneurship. You've got to know how to run that business successfully.
That's true,
And I think that gets overlooked when somebody says, I'm going to start a law practice. Well, are you good at running a business?
Yeah, and that's a great point that we hadn't preliminarily discussed, but it's absolutely true. I find even for myself, I am a very good practitioner, and I am not a bad businessman, but I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy the administrative stuff. I don't enjoy dealing with both personnel and taxes and licensing, and there is a lot of administrative work involved in running a law practice or a title company or a real estate company, and because I'm wearing all of those hats and having to run all of those companies, I find less time to do what I enjoy doing, though I've managed to balance it fairly well. But yes, it is something absolutely to consider. So if you can step into an established law practice and you can practice law, there would be, and somebody else is taking care of the secretaries and somebody else is taking care of the payroll, that does sound very intriguing.
Facilities and on, right?
I won't lie, that sounds good, but it's a little too late for me at this point.
Well, I must say, at some point in your career, you stepped into a stronger leadership role, and shortly thereafter, the economy. I mean, during you're right, the economy took a nosedive. So was that 2006, I believe, 2006, right? Yes. Share with us a little bit about what the lessons were that you learned about how to lead and keep your, get your company in a position where it was able to thrive.
Well, it kind of goes back to what I said about sort of stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit, but also you need to read and react to the market. You need to pay attention to what's going on. Again, I've been blessed with this skill set. When my father made me learn the foreclosure work in the early 90s and the probate work, then the market got good and I didn't need those skills. I was doing closings and everything was good, but when it took a dive, I started doing foreclosings and then it got picked up again, and the real estate market does this. Unfortunately, it does this usually for the first 12 years of my career. Then it went like this, and it was a beautiful thing. We got, we were cranking along, 03, 04, 05. Couldn't have been happier with the number of closings we did. And then, it just collapsed. And you need to be able to thrive in any market. A friend of mine once said that there's money to be made in every market. You just have to adjust your services to what is needed in that particular market. And that's what I was able to do, was the foreclosure defense. I saw a need to help the community, help people stay in their homes, and if they couldn't stay in their homes, then what I call a graceful exit from the home. But you do have to be able to see what the market is doing, anticipate a little bit, and read and react to it. So as a businessman, as a leader, you do have to be on top of it. You have to make sure your skill sets are going to be available for the good and the bad.
what might be some questions if I'm a law student and I'm early in my planning? What are some questions? What are some things I need to be thinking about doing or being intentional in doing that will ensure that I'm career ready and that I land a job, or that I land a job where I realize a high level of career satisfaction?
Well, it's like we talked about earlier. A lot of it is introspection. You need to think about those things that you enjoy doing. Again, don't box yourself in and don't say, I only want to do this. Be prepared to step outside of your box and be prepared to try other things. So even though you don't think, I made this mistake in law school, I didn't take any litigation classes because I never thought I was going to do litigation. Next thing you know, I'm learning litigation and I'm calling friends and trying to figure out how it works. So give yourself a broad base. Take that class that you think you might not like because A, you may turn out to like it, or B, you may end up needing those skills anyway. So, but as far as the job satisfaction, everybody has their own. You have your introverts, you have your extroverts, you have people who, like I said, love to read and just want to devour stuff, and you have other people who want to skim through it and do the Cliff Notes version and then just wing it out in front of a crowd. And know what your own skill sets are and what you enjoy, because ultimately, again, if you make it a career, I'm only at 26 years and I don't see any end in sight. My father has just hit his 55th year and I don't see any end in sight for him either. So what I tell my son now, you're in school for 4 years. If you go to law school, 3 more. So let's say 7 years to prepare. I'm at 26, so my math is bad, but almost 4 times, not quite. 4 times that I've been practicing. So find something you enjoy, because hopefully you'll be doing
really
it.
Love.
Yeah,
well, John, that's going to have to be the final note. You have been very informative, and I've learned quite a few things from you today. Thank you for being my guest. On behalf of everyone here on the set and my guest, thank you for watching, and remember, be career happy.
More information about this program is available online at millermediagroup.org.